Let's talk about something called PSYOP. We've all heard it, psychological operations. Sometimes it's called PSYOPs. Contrary to popular catchphrase, it's not always about winning hearts and minds. Very often, we wouldn't ultimately change people's hearts and minds. We may build degrees of trust, respect, or loyalty, or we may not. It very much depends. But ultimately, it's about changing behaviors. It's about identifying a particular audience, a segment of the population. What do we want them to do and how do we get them to do it? It's about influencing people in a certain direction to accomplish a particular objective. And this is done by identifying a target audience and understanding what their vulnerabilities are. What are the emotional buttons that we can push? What are the fears, the aspirations, the resentments, the different things that can be engaged to get them to act? And this is a very careful process. And at the most basic level, what we have to ask is, who are we trying to talk to? And how can we effectively resonate with them? And this employs something called emotionally effective communication. In other words, how do you get to the emotional parts of the brain and get them to be receptive to what you're saying? If your message is not effectively delivered, if it is delivered in a way that they will be immediately resistive to, because we're evolutionarily hardwired to resist things that we feel threaten our identity, our sense of belonging to a community, our sense of who we are as a person, or if we feel attacked, if we feel our core beliefs are attacked, we will often double down. And messaging or narratives that are ineffectively delivered, that do not emotionally resonate with a person in the right way, and that make them feel attacked or that are not properly understood, these can backfire. And then the target audience, the very people you want to talk to, can become more resistive and more hardened to the very message you're trying to put out. And they become more resistive to future messaging that other people try to put out. So, for example, if there's too much bad noise out there talking about, say, toxic masculinity, to the point where the average male becomes resistive to that word, then any of us talking about that word are going to have a harder time getting through. Now, if you understand your audience, if you understand better ways to deliver that message and to talk about, say, healthy masculinity versus toxic, and to do it in a way that more males will not be resistant to, that a decent segment of that population or that subgroup will be open to, because you can talk to them in a way that will resonate, that they can understand, and will get them to actually want to engage with the message. Then you can shift attitudes, or at very least, you can change behaviors, which is ultimately what we want to do. And if a message does not do that, it fails. Now, we have to understand effective messaging and target audience. Number one, because that gives us more ability to reach people we want to reach and to open people's minds and to help change behaviors in positive ways. It also helps us understand enemy propaganda and how adversaries target people. And if we understand that, then we can build counter narratives. And that's how we counter bad messaging and how we build good messaging. That requires the humility to step back, understand the PSYOP process, or at least understand the basics of communication and the basics of messaging and how it fails and how we can improve. This is where we have to lessen our resistance to hearing criticism that is constructive. We have to be less reliant on political ideology as a driver of our strategy and more reliant on analytical thinking, scientific thinking, and understanding effective messaging. That's how we combat extremism, and that's how we win.